Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Again, if you have a pen and paper, great. You can take notes. I'm just going to start a little bit about explaining what grid work is, how I understand it, how it works for me. It is a very popular topic. It's something that I get asked about a lot. And a lot of people, they want to learn how to do grid work. They want to understand a little bit better what it is, what the different grids are. So that's what I'm going to explain about today. So first of all, in order to understand grid work and grids, we need to understand what ley lines are. And ley lines are literally like natural lines of concentrated energy that flow between sacred sites or historical places around the earth. So they're just lines that flow around the earth's surface. Some places can be like, the pyramids, the stone circles, cathedrals, mountains, rivers, valleys. Ley lines flow through these places and carry energy, okay? And where ley lines cross as well, that's also very, very powerful energetic spaces. So like a very typical example, is some structures within the ley lines, within the grid are also in alignment with some of the different stars and some of the different constellations. So like a perfect example would be the pyramids of Giza in Egypt that are in line with Orion. Okay, so there's three of them in line with the three stars within the Orion belt. Okay. Yeah, like Stonehenge in the UK is located on ley lines. So yeah, just being really, really aware of these lines that navigate and the energy and power that they carry, okay? So the study of ley lines, it's called geomantic science, and these lines are like, it's like scientifically proven, it's not just like some kind of spiritual theory that no one knows, that there's no proof of. There's an actual study with regards to these lines, okay? So basically what happens is these lines can influence the energy of the earth. So let's say if there's like a community or a place that's built over these lines as well, it will carry its vibrational frequency imprinting as well. Then you've got Earth's meridians. So the meridians are other lines that also navigate through the Earth. So the meridians run from the North Pole to the South Pole and all around the Earth as well. So if you do energy work where these meridians cross and the ley lines cross, that's where really you can do very, very powerful grid work and activate some of these places and spaces that have been dormant, okay? So your prime meridian would be your Greenwich main time, which is, where also the time comes from, which is 0. So that would be kind of like your prime meridian that navigates through. Yeah, so with regards to sacred sites and places, I'm going to briefly speak about a place that I worked at here in Africa. It's in the northern Africa, and it's a place called Adam's Calendar. It's like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands years old. And basically, it's very interesting. It's like a stone circle. I'm actually let me see if I can pull up an image for you guys to see. Just give me 1 second. I actually spoke about this in a presentation recently. No, let me just actually Google it. That'll be quicker so you guys can have a look and see. And I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, this is a good one. So let me see. How do I share my screen now? Share. Entire screen share. Okay, so you guys should be able to see it. So yeah, there it is. So basically that's what it looks like. I'm going to also go back Here's some other images of it. This is kind of like the stones and this one, yeah, this one's it. It's the stones and how they are located. Yeah, there you go. That's a little bit small. Let me see if I can find another one. Yeah, that's kind of like an aerial view of it. Yeah, there you can see it nicely there. Anyway, yeah, okay, so how do I stop sharing? There you go. Okay, so I was relocated to live about 20 kilometers from that place during the pandemic. Um, I only found out after that the reason I was located there was to be able to hold grid and to do work on this powerful place. And I'm going to tell you guys something else. The one time when I went there with a colleague of mine, and she had never been, and we sat in America on a mountain, so it's quite high up. It's maybe like 1,000 meters, 1,500 meters. Um, so there's no one there. There's just like wild horses and animals. And we sat, we meditated, and we cleared our mind. And all of a sudden, there were, crickets and birds and little animals. Everything went completely silent. And as we were sitting there, we literally felt and then saw this huge spacecraft come down right above us. And we opened our eyes and we looked at each other, and me and my friend communicated telepathically. And her husband was just sitting, like standing a little bit further away there. And we were like, okay, like we didn't move or anything. And then the ship like communicated telepathically and said like, it's okay, like we're not going to hurt you, we actually just want to check and see what you're doing. It's almost like they were making sure that we weren't tampering or doing anything like negative or that wasn't in alignment with the structure itself. So I thought that was quite interesting. And then it just kind of like shot up and left. So that was quite cool. So that was one of my first experiences in working in one of these really powerful places. There's a lot of different types of ley lines. There's what you call dragon lines, which is a Chinese version, kind of like the ley lines. There's the Michael and Mary lines, which are quite famous as well, that go through the UK, through Britain, Glastonbury. I'll actually be in Glastonbury next year, doing some work there as well. So yeah, so I mean, again, these ley lines have been around since forever. I think Alfred Watkins was the one who discovered them and proposed the idea of them back in 1920. And he noticed that these prehistoric sites were linked in different ways. And so then he came up with this term, the ley lines. And there is still a lot of like research and exploration that's happening, we still don't know fully the capabilities. And this is why the grid work is very interesting when energy workers go and do the different types of grid work, because we are also learning as we navigate, Yeah. So again, like for me, my first encounter with understanding grid work was I was relocated in the middle of nowhere to hold a grid, to hold the frequencies, to do work within this structure. And after a few years, when that contract was over, I was actually allowed to move and leave and go live somewhere else if I didn't want to stay there anymore. So yeah, 75,000 years old is Adam's calendar. That's how old it is. I've got the year right here. So and the interesting things is those rocks and stones, some of them are in alignment with Orion, some of them are in alignment with the planets, so Venus, Mars, Mercury. Some of them are in alignment with the North Star. And it's a perfect clock that works with the sun. And also the interesting thing is the rocks are like, I don't know, like 100 times heavier than the densest rock ever. You need like maybe 20 people to move one of those. And they're not like they big, but they're not taller than me, I'm an average height human. And if you knock on them with like a specific rock, you can hear that they make a metal sound. They've actually got metalloids and metal inside. So they're very, very interesting. the story goes that they were placed there by the Anunnakis. There's a very long story that comes through with that. I don't know. I felt a lot of Pleiadian energy when I was there, so I thought that was quite interesting. But it's definitely like a very important site, that's present. So, okay. So the energetic grid is described and seen, and this is how I see it, as a grid of geometric patterns that is around the surface of the Earth. So if you imagine, the world and the Earth being round, and you have this grid described as geometric patterns all around them that are interconnected and form this network around the planet. It would be shapes like icosahedrons and dodecahedrons. Okay, so the icosahedrons is the triangles, and the dodecahedron is made of the pentagons. Okay, so the dodecahedron would be the third-dimensional shape of the pentagon, basically. The dodecahedron in sacred geometry represents the universe and cosmic harmony, and it's the manifestation of the creator and the consciousness, and it's also the 12 sides, which is the 12 signs of the zodiac and the months and all of that. Okay. So basically these structures that are around the earth, these grids that are around the earth, create the framework to assist into anchoring in high vibrational frequency energies of spirit, of divine forces. The icosahedron can also be expanded and made within a Merkaba structure as well. So within these grids, there's contained also the Merkaba structure. The sacred geometry gets very, very complex. So I'm just going to kind of like skim through it a little bit so that you guys can understand. But basically, the dodecahedron has the golden ratio within it, which is a natural occurrence, and it is a representation of the symmetry of the pentagon, and it is obviously connected to the world, to creation. But there are a lot more complex sacred geometric shapes that work within the grid. This is kind of like the basic ones when you first start doing grid work that you start seeing. These geometric grids also align with the planet's energetic centers, as I mentioned, and it creates this coherent structure that kind of like mirrors the Earth as well. There's grids within grids that also operate on multiple dimensions, on spiritual, mental, emotional, and physicals, and they allow the energy to circulate kind of like around the globe. Okay, so the sacred sites would be considered as nodes. There are key nodes where the energy is concentrated. Again, as I mentioned, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, the Giza Pyramid, and all these different sites that amplify already Earth's natural original currents. So these nodes are powerful portals where the ley lines cross and planetary energies and cosmic energies merged as well. Okay. Yeah. So basically your grid work connected to spiritual practices. So then I'm going to go into all the different types of grids that there are. There's more, but I'll speak about a few. But I want to just give a few practical examples. I find that it really helps when there's a practical example, because then you're like, oh, okay, maybe I can do that. Maybe it can work for me in that way, or it can work for me in this other way. So generally, like a good way to assist in stabilizing and harmonizing a place and doing grid work there would be your meditation, your connection to energy. However, there are things that can disrupt the grids. So which would be something like war, death, conflict, any of these disruptions create kind of like distortions and breakages within the grid. And this is what grid work is. It's assisting in repairing these or in opening up new ways and activating dormant DNA in order to expand that specific anchor point within the grid. I'm going to give an example. So this is a venue that I used to go to for parties many years ago when I was younger. And I never understood why I would always I went maybe like 3 times to this place, maybe yeah, 3 times. I don't think more, 4 at the most. And every time I would go, I would like either get nauseated or super sick, and I didn't understand. And then someone told, and I would also like feel like really anxious, and like I didn't enjoy myself. And I didn't understand because I would be fine. And then I would get there and start feeling like this. So I obviously connected that it was something that had to do, with the place and with the space. And then I was told that this was a beach and it was on the ocean. And I was told that many years ago there was a civil war there and a lot of people died at that venue. So so I was obviously picking up that. Mm. So the goal of grid work is to, assist in clearing these blockages, repairing the grid, repairing the energy, allowing the grid and restoring back the organic timeline within the structure, okay? Um, so, when we do energy work and energy healing and we connect to our higher versions of self, we connect to higher dimensional frequency beings, celestial bodies, our galactic families, our star systems, and we work with those. I was sent into the pyramids maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, and I had my Merkaba activation within there in my astral body. I didn't even know what was happening, and then I was shown that they were like portals for people, beings, spaceships, energies, and everything, kind of like to come and go. I was lifted on top of it, and my two triangles started spinning in opposite directions. My Merkaba started activating, and then I was fully anchored within, within the three pyramids and within the Orion constellation. And so now I can actually travel in and out and come and go through that Stargate as well. So to be able to do planetary grid work, it's really, really important to have self-awareness and be conscious of yourself, of who you are, and be in a space where you are in twin union with the source consciousness. So what does this mean? This means you're in a flow state and you're not operating anymore from an ego-based perception. It's not about you, it's about the greater good, it's about the collective. When you start operating from that space, you start operating from a space of unconditional love, then the grid work, you can do grid work. If you're not in that space yet, it's going to be very difficult. You can try, but yeah, it's going to be really difficult. It's going to be a lot easier to connect to grids if you are in the space where you released, cleared your traumas, released a lot of attachments that don't serve you, and really start operating from this space of unconditional love. And you can connect to the consciousness grid. So I'm going to explain a few different grids. There's the planetary grid, which I mentioned, it's the Earth grid. Then you'll have your solar grid, which will be your sun's energetic influence, sun codes coming through, light information, and this is connected to the planetary grid, which is the elemental grid as well. The elemental grid would be your mycelium grids, your plants, your animals, and all of that. And those are obviously all connected to the planetary grid and all connected to the solar grid and to the earthly grids. Your galactic grid would be your more kind of like cosmic energy field, which would be your Milky Way grid and all of that. Your solar grid would be connected to your solar system grid, which to an extent is also connected to the galactic grid. All these grids that I've mentioned now can anchor within organic and inorganic timelines. You obviously want to be operating from the grid that is within the organic timeline. Your universal grid will connect all realities in all different universes, and it operates beyond our known universal laws. So there's different evolutionary processes. I don't know, time goes backwards, gravity is upside down. It's very different to what our universal laws are. Then you will have your collective consciousness grid, which is your prime creator grid, which is your source consciousness. It's connected to all grids at all times, and they all connect through and into that one. Then you will have your 5D grid. Your 5D grid works beyond the constraints of space and time, where time is fluid, and it's anchored within the organic timeline template. So your natural evolutionary state, no distortion, can access the 5D grid. Meanwhile, your 4D grid can be anchored in different organic timelines and organic and inorganic timelines, okay? So There's a difference between your grids and your dimensional densities. Your grids overlap the dimensional densities, and the dimensional densities each have their own grid. Okay. The dimensional density is the dimension you interact with and observe, and the grid is kind of like overlapping it. And through the grid, you can access the knowledge. It's different etheric density levels. Each dimension also has its own grid. Okay. In your astral, you will have your higher astral grid, which would be close to your 5D grid, so more organic timeline. Similar, but still limitation of space. So you still need to kind of like walk everywhere. While your lower astral grid will be your more inorganic anchored timeline, which would be what we can call your eighth sphere as well, where there's co-created constructs, deception. There's a trap grid within it as well. You can find, your disembodied entities, beings who moved away from their natural evolutionary process and organic timelines. They've deviated from source consciousness. They're in service to self. It's kind of like a de-evolutionary regression, a separation, okay? So you need to move past the illusion of your lower astral to access the pure information within the higher realms. So your lower astral realm would be your realm of deception, okay? When it comes down to channeling information and anchoring information, you want to be in a space where you're only channeling, the purest from the highest of alignment through the heart center. If you channel from the lower astral tiers, then you will get distortion, okay? Yeah, again, there's a lot of distorted energies that reside here that struggle to ascend or access the 5D or higher timelines. They get stuck in kind of like these loops and circles, and they need to make, the conscious choice to leave and release and open up the heart center in order to navigate and get into the higher realms. Then you have your Akashic grid. Your Akashic grid would be your universal record of all knowledge, and this crosses along all timelines and encompasses all universes and universal laws. To access this, you need to be able to move past the lower astral layers and through the deception. So if you're still navigating through the 3D and 4D, you're not going to be able to access the Akash. You won't be able to access if you're not in a certain degree of alignment. It's the same as the Merkaba activation. It's not going to happen unless your system is actually ready for it, okay? Okay, I'm going to speak a little bit about, your personal empowerment and accessing your multidimensional self. Really, really doing the work on kind of like releasing what doesn't serve you, accessing parts of your soul that has been fragmented, understanding that you are always divinely guided and you do have divine intuition and you are divinely supported. So, we all have clairs and we all can access as our clairs, but you actually ideally want to be operating from a space of claircognizance, which just is your innate knowing. You just know. Okay, you don't need to check, you don't need to look, you don't need to listen, you don't need to feel, you just know. Okay, so you're just working, navigating through your intuition. The goal is to, get access information from there, but still be grounded and present and anchored in the here and in the now, okay? I'm going to briefly speak a little bit about there's Lewis Karen Harris theory where she speaks about the different places of the earth being part of different chakras of the energy field. So this is again someone's theory. You can take it or leave it. If it resonates, great. If it doesn't, that's also okay. So you will have your Shasta, your Mount Shasta, which will be your root. Then she says that Lake Titicaca in Peru would be your sacral, Uluru in Australia will be your solar plexus, your pyramids your throat, your Glastonbury your heart, Glastonbury also the third eye, and the Mount Kailash in Tibet your crown. I've also seen that planets can be connected to specific chakras as well. And again, these are different grids and different theories. So your Earth will be your root, your Mars your sacral, your Venus your solar plexus, your Venus and Jupiter can be your heart, your Saturn and Mercury your throat, your Sun your third eye, your Pluto your moon can be your crown. Okay, so again, guys, if you do research, there's a lot of different theories out there on the grids and the planets and what is anchored where and when. And again, it's up to you to see what resonates with you. You know, you can even make up your own theory, and if that's what's in alignment with your timeline, then that's also okay, you know. Okay. So your grid restoration techniques, how to repair and activate, you know, energy channels and ley lines. So generally what happens with me is I'll open up and then the light and energy will channel through me, through my system and through my energy field. And then from there, I expand it and anchor it out into different places. Okay, so intention is really important. Intention really is everything, you know. Sometimes it can literally be as easy as anchoring light as you're traveling. Like I'll literally be walking through airports and I'll just feel like light running through me and like lighting up things as I walk through. Okay. Different cities will have different grids and different places will feel different. So something might feel in one way as soon as you anchor in, and then maybe you go back a year later and it's going to feel completely different. Okay. Generally, the first time you anchor physically into the 3D in a grid, your system needs to adapt. You're going to need specific codes that need to be activated and so on. So it generally can be a little bit more intense than if you go back then. And what I've noticed as well is if you've anchored in the physical and in the 3D, it's gonna be easier for you to actually go there in the astral as well to do work within your astral space. Yeah, so for example, like the first time I anchored in LA was very different to the second and third times that I anchored there. And the same was with Manhattan. Like the first time I anchored in Manhattan, I was like, this is so dense. I mean, I anchored there back in 2011. 2011 was the first time I was in Manhattan, and then I went back again last year in 2024 with a very different perception, mindset, and understanding. And um, yeah, it was very, very, very different. And it was different to when I anchored this year in 2025. So yeah, sometimes you'll feel the shift, sometimes you'll feel the difference, sometimes you might get quite energetically tired, sometimes you'll feel a pull to go to a specific place, and that specific place might have specific energetic codes that are needed for your individual ascension process and for your individual journey. And if you feel that, you should follow that. You know, if you feel the urge to, I don't know, go to India and see a specific temple, you might have had lifetimes there, you know. You might need to clear something karmic there. So that was actually what happened to me when I was in India as well. I was specifically had to go to Rishikesh and to the border with Nepal and up in the Himalayas. I actually had to, it was just like a whole long story, but I really had to anchor into this temple that was there, and there had been previous lifetimes with part of my soul had been trapped there. So I had to go there physically to be able to do this work, to release this part of the soul in order to do some soul fragment retrieval, to reintegrate it, in order to move on with my ascension process. So yeah, I was only told this after. I wasn't told this when I was there. So yeah, working with the elements is another nice way to restore the grid and repair or activate dormant grids. So working with the forest, the trees, the leaves, asking for assistance, calling in the wind, talk to the nature. It's part of the earth, you know, it will help you and support you. Sometimes things like fires need to happen to clear old energetic grids and stagnant energy, kind of like to clear and release everything in order for new energy to come in or a new grid to anchor in, and to activate. And it can't activate unless whatever, you know, was on before needed to be clear, like these natural disasters like floods, fires, and things like that. And sometimes even if these are orchestrated by low vibrational frequency beings, they are still serving the higher purpose, okay? Yeah, practical work, working with candles, incense, ritual, you know. So I was sent in to do grid work in 2022 in this place that I didn't know why I was getting sent there. I was just told, go there. It was a big event in Mozambique, which is a country neighboring South Africa. And it was on the beach. And when I got there, I realized that there had been a very big mermaid massacre on the beach where about 500 mermaids had been massacred. And I had to do specific energy work to clear, to cleanse, to release, and to allow this part of the land and of the grid to be restored into its organic timeline and template. And I was only told when I got there, and I had to do, certain rituals with candles and all of that. Obviously, you can call your galactic brothers and sisters to assist you within any time that you do this work, prepping the space, making sure there's no portals, making sure that if there are portals, they're being used with integrity and for the highest alignment. You can also do grid work within the astral space. A lot of the time, people, you'll have these dreams where you're like, oh my God, the world is ending, and you're seeing all these apocalyptic timeline. And a lot of the time, these energy workers, they're like, oh my goodness, the world's going to end. I saw this, I saw that. They're not actually seeing the future. They're seeing timelines that are being cleared. And just by then observing them, it's actually clearing it and it's preventing it from actually really happening. So if that happens to you as well, you have a little bit more clarity as to why. Don't panic. Sometimes specific people hold specific codes from the land, from the natives, so specific blood, DNA, and they need to activate specific spaces, so they need to physically be there. Ancestral codes within the bloodline, within the genetic makeup. Your galactic grid work also would be your neutralizing the inorganic timelines. So again, doing this work on a galactic level within the astral space and the astral realms, accessing through the higher astral, through the 5D, through remote viewing, through astral projection, other planets and other spaces. But you'll get there. The galactic grid work is that's focused on the Earth first. So with regards to me and my own spiritual practices, I will always cleanse the space, maybe with like sage or Palo Santo. Whenever I go to a new place to stay, I will put like a grid around it. I generally work already with a grid encompassed within my system. I don't really need to activate it. Sometimes I will, but I just have like a general grid that follows me around, sort of thing. But yeah, everywhere I go, I'll generally set up like a little altar, maybe work with some candles or the elements. You can work with different deities and whoever you prefer, you can call in. I'll work with the Hindu deities, I'll work with the archangelics. It really just depends. You can also work on making yourself invisible when you're traveling. That's what I generally do so that I don't get psychically attacked when I'm moving between continents and flying. You can do grid work in spaces where there's a lot of people. You can just literally hold the light and, just spread and send light outwards. Yeah, and then there's different tools that you can use. You can work with different shapes, so you can work with like squares or the four elements, the four corners of the earth, the archangelics. You can work with triangles, you can work with fire, you can light like fires and shapes of triangles and call in and anchor, and again working with all the sacred geometry and all these different shapes that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, things that you can use also are like dowsing rods to check out like different areas that you're on to see, sometimes like specific land, a specific frequency, and then maybe it's really good to build a house on there, because then you'll harness the beautiful energy of the ley line that's passing through it. As you said, like building specific buildings on specific grids, like a healing center maybe can be built where two ley lines cross, and there's like a beautiful energy vortex there that assists with the healing, working with your natural intuition and what the earth is giving you in order to move in a positive direction within the technological evolutionary process. Your spiritual and personal growth, connecting to yourself, heightening your awareness, asking for assistance, even just by doing that, you're doing grid work and assisting in the ascension process. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, again, it really comes down to your own journey, your intuition. My advice would be to understand more first about how channeling works and how you can activate, open, and work with your channel before you go into doing grid work. But you can start doing grid work on a small scale. You can start with your house. You can start with your room. You can start with setting up an altar space within your space, within your studio, and seeing how that works, seeing how you're able to navigate and expand the frequency on that. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, I mentioned about the fires because I actually had spoken about it when I was in LA as well earlier this year in February. Um, so that was what came through to me when the LA fires happened, was that the new grid, the old grid had to be cleared. There needed to be clearing, and whether it was orchestrated or not, it didn't matter because it was for the highest alignment anyway, in order for the new grid and template to anchor in to assist the planet. So it was actually a good thing that was happening. Um, so yeah. Is there any questions? Do you guys have anything to ask before I do a bit of light language and energy healing? No, okay. Well, if anything does come up, I can take like one or two questions after the light language as well, okay? So you can all just start by closing your eyes and anchoring into the body as you find your comfortable breathing rhythm. With every inhale, you breathe in light, and with every exhale, you release all that doesn't serve you anymore. As you relax body, system, and energy field, you stay in a space of openness and oneness. As we call on the Archangelic Collective, Michael to the south, Uriel to the north, Raphael to the east, and Gabriel to the west, we call on Archangel Metatron with his blue cloak of protection from above, Sandalphon to seal the grid from below. We call on our higher selves, our spirit guides, and anyone else who wishes to be present for the greatest and highest good. You're welcome in this space. Na shikorokoro trea kre korokot kra ishenayatra. Tre nara tre kiet korokoa ishenayatre atreya tre siet korokora triatera isha. Releasing, 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 opening, releasing, opening. Nariat creo korokot kiera tiera tara. Trea tret kiero korokot kraina ia siet kro aishia tara. Kiara trea creo korokot kai shena ya tre at kiero korokot krat kiara tra. Trat kie na nia re yet kro aishena tra. Krat kiera tre ut ora isiet kra kiet ora ia ishena ya tra. Krat kro kora ishena ya re. Iot kroa ishena ya trat krea siet. Krat krokona ya ta ia ishieta reat kre okora isia. Krat kiera ta re nre ya reot kroa ishe ya tara. Kiat kroat kie nra nrai areat krai asiet krai na yat kie aya ishietara. Nat kre at kre yeset orok ora ishia. Kaya tre at kie nra nre ot kro na ya shir korokora ishia. Anchoring, 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 grounding, 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 grounding. Nrat kiara tre ya shira tara. Krat kiero ko kra si na. Shekruat ye shira ya tra. Yat kro kara tre tra ya tre siet kat krokora ishena ya ta. Na ina ya ra ya re arret krasia set kiara tra. Nta nia ti ia ishek kra shi aseya krokora ishiat. Nta ri arreia rearat krakt kre asia sietorokora ia ishera ya tra. Kiet Croatia Shenayatre e Roiatakra, Kiatare, Shiat Croa Kiet a Norokot Kra Siaratra, Krat Kria Isherayatra. Nde na ni areia reio rokorokot kraya sia sekorokot shkieratra. Shkrokoa ishenayatra. Tre yo 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 na ya reate rokorokoa ishe. Naya shiratara. Shkrokora isherayatra. Tre at kre aseya set kiat kre ot kroa ishia. Kraya to korokona ya ishirayatra. Kreya te korokot kra ishietara. Shukrokoa ishenayatra. Shukrokoa ishenayatra. Treya reat kre ot kroa ihietara. Shukrokoa ishenayatra. Kre aseya seya set kiat krokot kraya treya ishia. Na yareat kre ot koa ishenayatra. Kiara tre at kiera tre. Treia tera krekt nra, nreat kiero korokoa isheatra. Ratre. Anchoring, yat kroase, anchoring, grounding. Grounding, aligning, balancing, aligning, balancing, grounding, anchoring. Na aria shero korokorat kreasia tara korokoa ishera yatra. Karaya shero korokoa ishera yatra. Kara ia isiet krokoa ishiaratra. Kroa ishena yatre at krie korokoa ishera yatra. Shakorokona yatre atreya sia korokoa ishera yatra. As we ground back into the body, we call in more light and divine rays in assisting us in expanding our system, our energy field, as we call in and anchor and integrate any soul fragments. We come into the conscious knowing and understanding that we always divinely guided, divinely protected, divinely anchored, divinely supported. As we let go of any fear, pain, judgment, anything creating blockage or distortion, we surrender to the divine will of the universe. As we come in conscious awareness of ourselves, our body system and energy field. Whenever we feel ready, we can open our eyes. Come back to the now and the present moment. And just anchor back in.